Most men get confused, misled, or emotionally drained because they listen too closely to what a woman says and ignore what she shows. Words are easy. Anyone can say they care, say they're interested, say they want something serious, or say they're just busy. But actions require effort. They require intention. They require emotional investment. And this is where the truth always lives. When a woman is genuinely interested, her actions naturally align with consistency, presence, and engagement. She doesn't disappear for days, she doesn't leave you confused, and she doesn't make you feel like you're fighting for her attention. You don't have to decode mixed signals because real interest is rarely complicated. The problem is men often override the reality in front of them with what they want to believe. They cling to comforting words because facing the truth feels painful. But the truth is the only thing that protects you. A woman who wants you will show it even on her busiest days. She'll make time instead of excuses. She'll communicate instead of disappearing. She'll invest in the connection instead of leaving you hanging. Her words and actions won't contradict each other. Meanwhile, a woman who isn't serious might give you beautiful words, sweet promises, emotional lines, reassurance. Yet her behavior will always expose the gap between what she says and how she feels. If she says she misses you but never initiates. If she says she cares but doesn't show up. If she says she wants something real but puts zero effort. Those aren't mixed signals. Those are clear signals you're trying too hard to reinterpret. When you learn to rely on actions, your emotional world becomes calmer. You stop overthinking, you stop chasing, you stop asking, what should I text? Or why is she acting like this? Because you already know. Actions eliminate confusion. Actions reveal who she truly is, what she truly values, and how she truly sees you. And once you understand this, you stop getting played because you stop giving energy to people who aren't giving it back. You begin to match effort, not emotions. You wait for consistency, not promises. You require alignment, not potential. This shift turns you into a man who is grounded, observant, and emotionally stable. You no longer fall for manipulation wrapped in pretty words. You no longer tolerate attention-seeking behavior, hot and cold games, or emotional breadcrumbs. You protect your time and your heart because you aren't operating from fantasy. You're operating from reality. And reality is simple. A woman who wants you will move toward you. A woman who doesn't will move away. There is no need to force it, fix it, or chase it. When you trust actions, you see the truth instantly and save yourself months, sometimes years, of emotional confusion. Ultimately, you stop getting played because you stop playing yourself. The moment you stop believing excuses and start believing patterns, you naturally attract women who mean what they say and say what they show. And that's when you finally experience peace, clarity, and genuine connection. Consistency is the purest form of truth in any relationship because it reflects what someone values without needing explanation. When a woman is genuinely interested, her patterns reveal it effortlessly. You don't need to beg for attention. You don't need to initiate everything. You don't need to wonder where you stand. Her behavior communicates what her words never have to say. She shows up, she reciprocates. She maintains emotional presence. She remembers the small things you share. She invests time, energy, and affection in the connection, not because she has to, but because she wants to. Real interest always expresses itself through effort, and effort is the foundation of consistency. In contrast, inconsistency is not an accident. It's a message. It's a soft rejection disguised as unpredictability. When a woman likes you only when she's bored, lonely, or temporarily emotional, her behavior becomes uneven. Warm today, distant tomorrow. She might flirt intensely one moment, vanish the next, come back when it suits her, and disappear again when she finds a new source of attention. Inconsistent effort is simply her way of telling you that you are not a priority but an option. And once you learn to read these patterns without trying to reinterpret them through emotion, you gain clarity and protection. The truth is, consistency cannot be faked long term. Anyone can be on their best behavior for a week or two. Anyone can pretend to care for a short burst of time. But the things people truly desire are where their habits naturally lean. When a woman's messages always feel last minute, when she only reaches out at her convenience, when she never initiates plans, or when she keeps you guessing, it's because her heart is not moving in your direction. Men get played when they take temporary effort as proof of long-term interest. But wise men judge by patterns, not moments. Consistency also reflects emotional maturity. A woman who knows what she wants won't confuse you. She won't create emotional highs and lows. She won't punish you by withholding affection. She won't make you feel insecure just to gain leverage. She will communicate. She will show reliability. She will be present even when life gets busy. Because when someone values you, they don't let you feel alone in the connection. That is the difference between someone who is genuinely interested and someone who enjoys the attention but not the responsibility. When you start prioritizing consistency over chemistry, your entire dating experience transforms. You stop falling for charm, beauty, or intense early excitement. You stop chasing the highs and ignoring the lows. You stop accepting crumbs because you hope they will turn into a full meal. Instead, you begin to value peace, reliability, and effort. You begin to see who is really there for you and who is just passing time. And once you develop the discipline to walk away from inconsistent women, you stop getting hurt by them. In the end, consistency protects your heart because it reveals the truth. A woman's consistent effort shows genuine attraction. Her lack of consistency shows indifference. And once you let patterns speak louder than emotions, you will never again waste energy on someone who doesn't truly want you. One of the biggest reasons men end up hurt, confused, or emotionally drained is because they fall in love with a woman's potential instead of her reality. They don't fall for who she truly is. They fall for who she could be, who they want her to be, or who she pretended to be in the beginning. This mindset blinds them to red flags, contradictions, and patterns that clearly show she's not aligned with the connection. Hope becomes stronger than truth. Fantasy becomes louder than evidence. And once a man enters this mental trap, he becomes easy to manipulate, easy to ignore, and easy to string along. In the early stages of attraction, it's common for both men and women to present the best version of themselves. But where men get trapped is believing that this best version represents the woman's permanent character. They hold on the first few weeks of excitement as if it's a promise of the future. They ignore the shift in energy, the reduction in effort, and the inconsistency that slowly creeps in. They tell themselves she's stressed, she's busy, she's overwhelmed. Anything to avoid acknowledging that she simply doesn't feel the same way anymore. When you fall in love with potential, you start writing excuses for someone who isn't writing effort for you. A woman who is not serious will always leave clues. Her communication becomes inconsistent. Her energy fluctuates. Her behavior contradicts her words. She gives you enough to keep you around, but never enough to make things real. She might tell you she cares, but she doesn't prioritize you. She might tell you she wants a future, but she never takes real steps toward it. She might tell you she loves spending time with you, but she never initiates or follows through. Men who fall in love with potential cling to these words and ignore the emptiness behind them. This attachment to fantasy also makes men tolerate behaviors they should never accept. They stay when they should walk away. They chase when they should observe. They try to fix things that aren't broken, they're simply not mutual. They become emotionally invested in a version of her that doesn't exist anymore, or perhaps never existed at all. A woman doesn't have to manipulate you directly. Your own imagination does the manipulation for her. But when you fall in love with reality instead, everything becomes clearer. You see her actions objectively. You watch her patterns without emotional filters. You evaluate her consistency, her respect, her loyalty, her effort. You judge not based on what you want her to be, but who she is right now. Reality never lies. When you embrace reality, you gain control of your heart. You stop chasing illusions. You stop expecting more from someone who gives little. You stop giving chances to someone who's only giving excuses. The truth is, love based on potential is just self-deception disguised as hope. And self-deception leads to heartbreak. But when you choose clarity over fantasy, you protect your emotional well-being. You stop getting played because you no longer play yourself. You see people as they are, not as you dream them to be. And that simple shift saves you from years of emotional damage and leads you to relationships that are real, reciprocal, and fulfilling. A woman's treatment of you is almost always a reflection of how you treat yourself. This is one of the deepest truths in relationships that many men overlook. If you carry yourself with confidence, calmness, and clear boundaries, you naturally command a certain level of respect and consideration. But if you approach a woman from a place of insecurity, neediness, or desperation, she will sense it instantly. Women are incredibly perceptive when it comes to emotional cues. They don't just respond to what you say, they respond to who you are. And if who you are says, "I don't value myself," then she won't value you either. Many men unknowingly teach women how to treat them by what they allow. When you tolerate disrespect, it becomes normalized. When you chase someone who barely reciprocates, you communicate that your time and energy hold little value. When you ignore your own needs just to please her, you tell her that you don't expect anything in return. And when a woman senses that you don't require respect, appreciation, or effort, she rarely offers those things. Not because women are cruel, but because people naturally adjust their behavior to the standards you set. If you set none, you receive none. Self-respect is the foundation of all healthy romantic dynamics, and women respond strongly to it. A man who respects himself doesn't beg for attention, doesn't wait around for breadcrumbs, and doesn't emotionally invest in someone who gives him nothing. He communicates through action, not anger. He walks away from situations that drain him, not because he's cold, but because he understands that staying in a one-sided connection destroys his inner strength. And this kind of man becomes someone a woman admires, not someone she manipulates. Women are attracted to emotional leadership, which isn't about controlling anyone, but about controlling yourself. It means you don't react impulsively to mixed signals, you don't get jealous over small things, you don't break down at minor conflicts, and you don't let your entire identity revolve around her. You remain steady. You remain grounded. You remain whole with or without her. That steadiness makes a woman feel safe, respected, and drawn to you. It shows her that you aren't seeking validation. You're sharing connection. And that difference changes everything. On the other hand, when a man lacks boundaries, he puts himself in harmful situations over and over. He waits for her replies like his life depends on them. He accepts disrespect because he fears losing her. He sacrifices his dignity just to keep her attention. But every time he does this, he diminishes his worth, in her eyes and in his own. A woman cannot genuinely respect a man who doesn't respect himself. And without respect, the relationship becomes a breeding ground for emotional games, imbalance, and heartbreak. Once you start prioritizing your well-being, everything shifts. You realize that you don't need to chase, impress, or force anything. You become selective instead of desperate. You communicate your standards clearly. Not through lectures, but through how you live. And women respond to that. The ones with good intentions rise to the level you set. The ones with bad intentions disappear because they can't manipulate a man who values himself. Ultimately, the way a woman treats you mirrors the way you treat yourself. Change yourself and you change the dynamic. Improve your self-respect and you eliminate the possibility of being played. When you elevate your standards, the wrong women fall away and the right ones draw closer, naturally, effortlessly, and respectfully. High standards are more than preferences. They are a filter that protects your peace, your energy, and your emotional health. When you raise your standards, you're not becoming difficult, picky, or arrogant. You're simply choosing not to entertain connections that drain you, confuse you, or disrespect you. And the moment you set those standards, the kind of women who play games, breadcrumb, or manipulate will automatically eliminate themselves from your life. You won't even need to confront them. They'll leave because they cannot operate in an environment where accountability exists. Many men think standards are about what they expect from women, but real standards start with what you expect from yourself. If you hold yourself to a higher level, discipline, confidence, purpose, emotional stability, only women who respect and match that energy will feel comfortable staying in your life. A woman who isn't serious won't stay with a man who doesn't tolerate inconsistency. A woman who is only looking for attention won't stay with a man who doesn't respond to manipulation. A woman who wants to play games won't stay with a man who doesn't chase. High standards don't push good women away. They push the wrong women out. What most men don't realize is that low standards are the reason they keep attracting drama. If you tolerate disrespect, you attract disrespectful women. If you accept bare minimum effort, you attract women who give exactly that. If you chase someone who has little interest, you attract emotional instability. And every time you accept less than you deserve, you send a signal that you are willing to settle. Settling is the fastest way to get played. Because when a woman senses you don't require respect, she won't give it. On the other hand, high standards create clarity. You don't get stuck guessing her intentions because you evaluate actions, not excuses. You don't get trapped in toxic cycles because you walk away at the first sign of disrespect. You don't wait for someone to change because you understand that patterns rarely lie. Instead, you attract women who value emotional maturity, loyalty, consistent effort, and genuine connection. Because those are the women who meet your standards naturally. A man with high standards doesn't give out emotional access easily. He protects his time. He invests only in women who invest too. He doesn't jump into relationships out of loneliness or fear. He understands that his heart is not a toy and his energy is not free. Becoming a high-standard man means understanding your worth and refusing to negotiate it. Not through arrogance, but through discipline. Not through ego, but through self-respect. Women admire men who know what they deserve. They are drawn to men who don't break their values for temporary pleasure or short-term validation. And the wrong women, those who want control, attention, or emotional dependency, won't be able to stay because they can't manipulate someone who values himself. High standards act like a protective shield that keeps unworthy connections out of your life while allowing strong, genuine women to step in. In the end, raising your standards is not about being cold, it's about being wise. It's about preserving your mental and emotional well-being. It's about understanding that you are not obligated to entertain anyone who doesn't respect, appreciate, or reciprocate your energy. And once you internalize this truth, you stop getting played forever. Because your standards simply won't allow it. Understanding emotional dynamics is the point where everything in your dating life begins to change. Because once you understand how emotions influence attraction, respect, and connection, you stop being reactive and start being intentional. Most men get played not because they're weak or unintelligent, but because they don't understand how emotional cues operate in relationships. They misread signals, overvalue words, underestimate patterns, and allow their feelings to lead them into situations that were never meant for them. But when you understand the emotional framework women operate from, how they connect, how they pull away, how they test your strength, and how they measure your value, you become unplayable. Women are emotional communicators. They express interest, frustration, excitement, and doubt through subtle shifts in behavior, tone, and energy. A man who is unaware of emotional dynamics reacts to those shifts with panic or insecurity. He becomes clingy when she pulls back. He becomes jealous when she gets distant. He becomes defensive when she expresses discomfort. These reactions lower his perceived value and signal emotional instability. But a man who understands emotional dynamics doesn't get rattled by temporary shifts. He sees them for what they are, fluctuations, not conclusions. He stays calm, steady, and grounded, which naturally increases respect. A woman is drawn to a man who can lead emotionally, not by controlling her, but by controlling himself. She feels safe with a man who can handle pressure, uncertainty, and complexity without falling apart. She trusts a man who doesn't let his emotions run wild, who doesn't become needy when things get quiet, and who doesn't crumble when conflicts arise. Emotional leadership means you operate from strength, not fear. You communicate clearly instead of accusing. You set boundaries instead of begging. You observe before reacting. This presence makes you a man who cannot be manipulated because your emotions aren't easily swayed by her moods or actions. Understanding emotional dynamics also means recognizing when a woman is using emotions to test your stability. Sometimes distance is a test. Sometimes a small argument is a test. Sometimes inconsistency is a test. She wants to know whether you're grounded enough to handle her emotional reality. Not every test is malicious. Often it's subconscious. Women want to feel that the man they are with can be a rock, not a leaf that blows with the wind. When you respond with presence instead of panic, certainty instead of confusion, strength instead of desperation, she feels secure, and manipulators lose their power over you. This awareness also teaches you when to stay and when to walk away. You no longer stay attached to someone who causes emotional chaos. You no longer mistake emotional highs and lows for passion. You no longer confuse drama with love. Instead, you recognize emotional instability for what it is, a sign that the connection is unhealthy. And instead of trying to fix someone who isn't ready to be fixed, you protect your peace by letting go. Once you understand emotional dynamics, you stop getting played because nothing catches you off guard anymore. You see intentions clearly, you see patterns clearly, you see compatibility clearly. You stop giving your heart to emotional turbulence and start investing it in emotional maturity. And the moment you master your emotional world, you become a man who cannot be controlled, manipulated, or misled. Because your strength comes from within, not from her validation.